Madam Speaker, South Africa belongs to all who live in it. The question is that true for black and for white? Economically, this government did well, and I said that more than once. But I want to focus today on black-white relations. For 10 years, sir, I've listened to speeches in this assembly in which whites are accused of racism while blacks can do no wrong. I'm tired of double standards and political correctness that forces us to silently bear these attacks. We must look each other squarely in the eye today and honestly talk about this. We must calculate what the effect of this is on all the South Africans out there. The ANC Youth League sees it very simply. Mr. Tsangazi says the following. He says, and I quote, "When a black person says he does not like white people, that is not racism. It is prejudice. Blacks have no capacity to be racist. They can only respond to it." End of quote. Dr. Nokia, the Rufus Nokia, is a young Afrikaner doctor who works in the Mamethlake Hospital in Mpumalanga. Last week, 3 young black men came into the hospital, placed a gun against his head, and threatened to kill him after they asked him whether he was Afrikaans. What does this being Afrikaans have to do with anything like this? According to the nurses, they warned him that they want to kill him because he's white, and it happened. The question is, what does the ANC Youth League say of this? Prejudice or blatant racism? Yesterday, the Indian shops in Mpumalanga were destroyed, while the black shops were not touched. Prejudice or racism? I know it's dangerous things we talk about. Sir, Mr. Jock Gouveia was a 70-year-old farmer in the Heidelberg area. He died in December last year. He was beaten on his head, after which a rope was tied around his neck. He was fastened to a vehicle and dragged behind the vehicle. He died of strangulation, a result of being dragged behind the vehicle. 4 young black men were arrested. Some of them are 15 years old. What does the ANC League say? Is it prejudice or racism? Where do these young people come from, sir? They weren't in the struggle. They do not know tear gas and police action. They were born in 1990, when Mr. Mandela was set free. What motivates them to act like this? They were raised on political speeches by all of us and the ANC, and one-sided TV propaganda programs. This has created a climate within which young people act in this way, racist way, and believe that carries the necessary approval of somebody somewhere. According to those speeches and TV programs, whites have done only bad things for 350 years, and blacks have done only good. This is a distortion of our history. Our history is not that simple. In our history, there were bad white people and good white people, but also good black people and black people, and there's many examples. Let me give you one. In 1830s, Mr. Katse, leader of the Matabele, attacked the Barolong in what is today the Free State, killed many men, enslaved the children, and took some of their women. The Matabele stole the Barolong's land. Chief Moroka of the Barolong then signed a treaty with the Afrikaner Boers. In October 1836, Mr. Katse tried to kill the Afrikaners at Vegkop. He did not succeed, but he stole all the cattle. They had no food, no oxen, nothing to move their wagons. Chief Morocco at the Barolong then sent oxen to pull the wagons. The Afrikaners were moved to his place at Tabanshu. There they stayed for a month, while he helped them to recover. Why don't you also hear this part of history? Go and read about the relationships between the Afrikaners and the Zulu in Natal. How after the Battle of Black River in 1840, they handed rocks of peace to each other. And in 1866 came together at Black River and stacked rocks as a symbol of their peace. How Ketshwayo gave land to the Boers after they helped and protected him. The Republic of Vrye dates from that period. Interesting, eventually the Zulu king Dinizulu and the Boers end up on St. Helena, both banned to the island by the British. So you can interpret this history as you please. The point I would like to make is our history is not a simple black-white confrontation where one side is always bad and the other always good, as sometimes is always portrayed around here. The Ivory Coast was seen as one of the model states of Africa. The democracy and stability of the Ivory Coast were, after 40 years, suddenly destroyed by a military coup in 1999. What went wrong in the Ivory Coast? The question is, what will South Africa look like in the year 2034? It will then be precisely 40 years after the transfer of power to the ANC. Will there be harmony between the different groups? Let's hope. Or will our children then fight each other, as in the Ivory Coast? Sir, the decisions taken in this assembly and the speeches we make will largely determine this in the end in 40 years' time. The ANC Youth League says one can have 40 years of anti-white speeches. It won't have any effect on black people because blacks have no capacity to be racist. What nonsense, sir. The big hero of the ANC Youth League is Mr. Mugabe. This weekend, Mr. Mugabe launched an attack on the American Secretary of State, Mrs. Condoleezza Rice. According to Mr. Mugabe, Ms. Rice should know, because she comes from a history of slavery, that the white man is not a friend. Sir, that is crude racism and a generalization. All whites are enemies, according to Mr. Mugabe. Why is it not condemned? If that is the type of politics we're going to practice, we'll end up as the Ivory Coast. I prefer the old Mugabe. During the independence celebrations of Zimbabwe, April 1980, Mr. Mugabe said the following, and I quote him. He said, oppression and racism are inequalities that must never find scope in our political and social system. And evil remains an evil, whether by white against black or black against white. End of quote. But sir, the ANC is as guilty in creating this climate. Read the documents on the ANC website. If you do not join the ANC, you are an enemy, according to those documents. Attack the enemy on all fronts, the document says. We on this side of the assembly are described as, quote, broadly speaking, counter-revolutionaries. Sir, the last 10 years, the Freedom Front Plus has spoken to the assembly about cooperation and reconciliation. Read my speeches. They are all available in Hansard. And you remember what I said. What does the ANC write in the strategy documents on this reconciliation? Page 9. The deliberate policy of reconciliation adopted by the liberation movement is to narrow the space for those forces which might have had planned to subvert this process. End of quote. Does the ANC reconciliation comes from the heart? Or is it a deliberate strategy to outmaneuver the enemy? I need to know that. We cannot blame the ANC youth if this is correct. The young lion cubs act as they were trained there. South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Black and white, says the President, and I agree and I support it. I received a letter from a young South African the other day, last week. He was just affected by affirmative action. He's a qualified clinical psychologist who completed his community year at the Defence Force. He did such excellent work that the Director of Psychology asked him to stay with the Defence Force, Mr. Minister. He had an attractive offer to go and work overseas for much more money. After consideration, he decided to stay with the Defence Force. Coincidentally, the Minister last week asked that more whites should join the Defence Force. Last week, he receives a call in which he is told that his application has been turned down and that he has to leave his post within the next month. The Director of Psychology did not turn him down, but Human Resources did. Why? They say because the quota of black psychologists have to be filled, and he unfortunately is white. All indications are that his position will not be filled because black psychologists did not apply for the position. What do I write to him? I must respond. Do I quote Minister Lakota that says white should join? Do I quote the President that says Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white? Recently a study was completed that shows that affirmative action is the single biggest factor that leads to alienation amongst young whites, and we must take cognizance of that. The Freedom Front Plus has suggested solutions. We try to solve these problems, not to make it worse. We have suggested a cut-off date, as well as that young people of certain age be exempted. The ANC says it's important, we will talk, but he stays with that. As leader of a political party, what should I say to my supporters? Must I copy the ANC Youth League and say whites have no capacity to be racist, they can only respond to it? That would also be nonsense. Then it would be justifying throwing a person in a lion's enclosure or dragging him behind a vehicle because he's a different race. We condemned those incidents, but the ANC did not condemn the black racist incidents I referred to. The easy way is to reward racism with racism, but that will bring us nowhere. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and then we end with the whole world being blind.